I enjoyed that time, but I frankly I didn't connect. I didn't totally understand what Rotary was, how large its reach was, and how large its impact was around the world, and all the different ways that we as Rotarians make a positive difference in our world. I moved up to Reston, Virginia about a year ago, and at about that time my girlfriend's grandfather passed away, and he was just a phenomenal human being, a veteran, and a former district governor up in Wilmington, Delaware. And I was at his wake, frankly, and saw all his friends from India, all the wonderful experiences laid out on tables that he had through Rotary, and all the meaningful things he had done through Rotary. And I realized there must be something here that I'm just not seeing yet. So again, girlfriend's sister's father-in-law invited me as the Sergeant of Arms of the Tyson's Corner Club, invited me to come and check out a meeting there, and I was lucky enough to meet Janet Brown, our district governor there, and the wonderful gentleman who was going to be our district governor this year, George Tyson. And the two of them got me engaged in this peace building effort. They realized that of the 6 areas of focus that we have as Rotary, the peace area of focus was potentially underserved, or maybe to put it a different way, an area where we could be doing more. So I took on that effort, and frankly it was those district engagements enabling me to get around the district, see how our collective action works together, and see all the things we're doing locally and internationally that truly made me a Rotarian. And I live by the 4-way test. I think that is a wonderful model for acting with a peace mindset and a peace building mindset in general. I look at me maybe as one example of a young Rotarian who might not be with you here today if it wasn't for my interest and the meaning that I've developed through the peace area of focus. So, that being said, I'm going to kind of briefly discuss the relationship between our work as Rotarians and peace. And I thought I would start off with just a definition of peace, which is a sustainable collaboration and mutual respect between all people, leading to a lack of violence or conflict behaviors. It's promoted through sincere, and I want to stop here, sincere attempts at reconciliation and mutual understanding. One reason I think the peace area of focus is so underserved is because I think it's a very difficult one to serve without authenticity. Just like any business would find it hard to export something, a competency that is not a core competency of their own, you really have to, as a human being, understand, develop through discipline, and lead a life that is founded on a peace-building mindset. And if you don't own that yourself, if you don't own that as a club, as a community, very difficult to export, I think, somewhere else. And that means truly being open-minded, not just saying we're open-minded, truly having empathy and trying to understand the multiple sides to any debate, and they're all the legitimacy of all of them. We all have our own perspectives based on our own backgrounds and environment, and we create meaning in our life based on what we see. And just because our experiences have led us to see life in a certain way does not mean that that is the only proper way to see life. It means being able to have the emotional intelligence to focus yourself and calm yourself when you're having a discussion that you have a deep passion for the outcome and you care about deeply. It's about having the emotional intelligence to recognize when the other people are emotionally riled up, and how to try to bridge that gap rather than fuel those flames. And I would say in general, one spectrum on which we can see people and their actions. I do believe people can move along this spectrum. We're not, doomed to be in one space forever, but on one end of the spectrum you have people who just seem to, at that time, have an orientation that is geared towards finding the dividing lines in a society, picking a side and breathing life into the conflict. On the other side, you have people whose entire orientation is to try to find the common ground and try to find the ways to put everyone on the same side, so to speak, and focus on what we have in common and how to move that forward rather than what divides us. And that's why I think that the peace area focus is one that we need to, as Rotarians, focus on, because those skills are so important to building a better, a more vibrant and positively connected world that, that is a huge function that we can play with 1.2 million members across the world. And of course, with the resources we have as Rotarians, we don't only have a unique ability to affect positive change in this light, those resources impress upon us a responsibility to use them to those ends. And if we look at some of these factors that are important to peace, like sustainable energy, food, water, healthcare, economic policies, they start to sound a little familiar. They sound like our other 5 areas of focus. And really, the peace area of focus is served by those other areas because those efforts help to create a more sustainable and society and increase the strength of the institutions that bind people together in a society and enable them to focus on peace and reconciliation between competing interests. And the other way around, if you bring a peace-building attitude to those other projects, you can minimize the bureaucratic discussions, the infighting, the lack of proper communication, and the challenges that prevent groups from effectively executing those projects. So both the peace area of focus feeds those other 5 areas, and those 5 areas feed the peace area of focus. And I think that's an important thing for us all to recognize and understand. Now, just a couple peace-related definitions that one of our peace fellows, Patricia Schaefer, has done a good job of kind of helping to distinguish between peacemaking as stopping the bullets, peacekeeping as negotiating, and peace building as creating an environment of security through education, water, hygiene, food, and all those great things we do as Rotarians. Now, the most important element of peace building is one that, frankly, I could not speak to with the same credibility and I think compelling nature that a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Jody Williams, can. So I'm going to take a moment to hear from her. And Jody is most well known for her work removing landmines from war-torn areas around the world.
One of the things that made this campaign work is because we grew from 2 NGOs to thousands in 90 countries around the world working together in common.
Here, I'm sorry, I'm going to play it over the speaker so you can hear it. 1 moment.
One of the things that made this campaign work is because we grew from 2 NGOs to thousands in 90 countries around the world working together in common cause to ban landmines. Some of the people who worked in our campaign could only work maybe an hour a month. They could maybe volunteer that much. There were others like myself who were full-time. But it was the actions together of all of us that brought about that change. In my view, what we need today is people getting up and taking action to reclaim the meaning of peace. It's not a dirty word. It's hard work every single day. And if each of us who cares about